This is a very interesting question from Caroline, who's a parent and fantasy fan, aged 40. How far ahead have you plotted the series, and should we expect incremental complexity as our kids grow? That is a great question. And the answer is uh, I have plotted the series for the first 5 books. That is where I'm heading. I'm writing book 3 at the moment. Book 2 will be out on the 31st of August, available on Amazon. You can get your pre-order now. And I'm on chapter 20 of book 3, so I'm making good progress in the first draft. Obviously, after the first draft, there'll be a lot of rewriting to get it on point. Um, so I have 5 books kind of very loosely planned out because what I like to do and my kind of creative technique is to let the characters as much as possible within a rough, I know roughly where they're going, but I like the characters to kind of dictate where the story goes. So as I'm writing, I'll find that the story often diverts into different paths, which I hadn't expected. And I like that. I think that's where the story gets its kind of unpredictability and interest. Um, if you plot everything out, I mean, some people are great. I mean, really plotting everything out, the story down to the last detail, and it works like clockwork, and it's brilliant. But I think you have to play to your strengths, and that is, though I do like the planning process because, as you plan, you kind of sparking your imagination. So I do plan, but I'd like my golden rule is just to write every day, and I always write last thing before going to bed. So I write in bed, and that even if I don't write very much, what it does is it kind of if I it gets my imagination working during the night while I sleep. So I'm not wasting time during the day trying to think things through. And then when I get to write during the day, um, it kind of just spills out, and I just let the story go where it goes. So it's quite an exciting way of writing because once it's scary at first because you don't know, it's not good for the. I mean, it's slightly scary to not know what you're going to write that day. But once you get used to this system, you find that as you're writing, because your brain has had all that time to think on its own in the subconscious, as you're writing, all these ideas kind of flow out. And so now, whenever I get a situation where I am stuck or I don't know what to write, I jump for joy because I know that is going to be a crucial part of the story where the story takes an unexpected direction. And if it's unexpected for the writer, it's unexpected for the reader. And that is what creates a more interesting narrative. So yes, I have plotted the first 5 books. And in terms of incremental complexity, absolutely. What I'm doing, obviously in book 1, I had to be very careful with words I could use, which young readers could understand. But obviously, as these, as the children grow, and also as they acquire those words, maybe with some kind of explanation, then it's in their database, shall we say, so that we can, as we progress, the story can use a bit more adult words because they've already seen them before and understood what they meant. And then in terms of complexity, absolutely, the first story starts quite small, and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, as you'll see in book 2. It already starts to get much bigger, and book 3, the scope is amplified again, and so on in book 4 and 5. So expect much more complexity and longer books, from book 3 onwards. I think there'll be a bit more meat to the bone because, you don't want to alienate the reader with a long book at the beginning of the series. The first book is to try and introduce the world and introduce that level of excitement that will then take them through the rest of the series. And what I found with books or series, which I've loved, is they're very, getting into them sometimes can be hard. And I wanted to kind of deal with that in book 1 and make it very immediate. So, and relatively simple a story, but then gets the reader into the book straight away without having to read 100 pages to get into the book. But what I found with the big series is once you're into them, you don't want them to end. So I think you'll find that the last 3 books will, the reader will already be into the world. They'll know all the kind of, or many of the kind of eccentricities of that world, so they won't need explaining again. And we can concentrate much more on the complexity of the story, bringing in new characters, new realities. So it's going to be huge. I'm very excited. But, every journey starts with a first step, and one step at a time, I am working through the series. And, when you're writing, it can seem never ending because I'm now on chapter 20. I started on the 1st of January. I still can't see the end, even though I'm only, in theory, 7 or 8 chapters from the end. But I still can't see it. And once I write the end, then I can breathe a huge sigh of relief and then go back and start editing it. What I've noticed in first drafts is they're the hardest thing to do. And then the editing process, even though it takes a long time, is actually, I'm now quite enjoying it because you're kind of just adjusting things. And then you can then start inserting a bit of nuance, which maybe in the first draft, because you were kind of focused on just finishing it, you had missed. Anyway, lovely question. Thank you very much.